So before doing this lesson, you should have completed the 4.2 Desmos activity, okay? And there are some parts within that Desmos activity that you're going to use to fill out your worksheet. So we're actually going to take up some of the questions from the Desmos activity now, and we're going to start by going through coming up with the monthly budgets for the different amounts here that were also in your Desmos activity. So a lot of these we are like, again, these are estimates. So let's dive right in. We'll take a look. So this first one, annual property taxes of 4,500. So again, I take a look at the fact that this is an annual property tax. So that's the cost per year. Okay, and so if we want to come up with that monthly cost, we're going to take that 4,500 and we're going to divide it by 12. And so we end up with $375 per month. And that's what we would budget for the month. Okay, people pay their property taxes in different ways. Sometimes people pay them quarterly, so 4 times a year. A lot of people do pay them monthly, though, with their mortgage payments. The next one is weekly daycare expense. So we're just going to assume here that we have 4 weeks in a month. Again, we could be a little bit more precise with this depending on the month, but we're just going to go ahead and take this $375 that we pay per week and multiply it by 4, and that gives us $1,500 per month. Daycare is definitely not cheap, and actually that's a pretty decent price. Okay, so the next one we have is bi-weekly mortgage. So this is every other week, that bi-weekly amount. So we're going to assume that we would have, again, 4 weeks in a month. So if this is every other week, we would multiply this by 2 to get it for the month. So we would have $815 times 2, and this would give us $1,630 per month. Okay, next up we have semi-annual insurance payments. So semi-annually, this is 2 times a year. So you can figure this out in a couple different ways. So we could take this $600 and times it by 2, which gives us 1,200. And we know that this is for the whole year, right? So if this is 2 times a year, if I multiply it by 2, that'll give me the cost per year. And once I have the cost per year, I can go ahead and divide that by 12 to get my monthly amount. So this would be $100 per month. Okay. The other way to do this is knowing that this is 2 times a year, this semi-annual payment means that the $600 is for 6 months. Okay, so the other way to just go ahead and calculate this is take that $600, and because I know that covers 6 months, I would divide it by 6, and that gives me that $100 a month. So either way you calculate it is fine. With our next one, we have a bi-monthly. So again, this is every other month. Okay, so again, we could calculate the amount per year by multiplying this $100 by 6, or we can recognize that bi-monthly amount, this would cover, so 2 months of payments. So if I take that bi-monthly amount of $100 and divide it by 2, I'm going to get $50 per month. Okay. The next one has us looking at quarterly GST checks. So this is 4 times a year. So we could calculate this again in a couple different ways. We could do the $120 times 4, that'll give us the annual amount. Or we could just recognize that this, and then divide it by 12, sorry, to go back to that one. Um, or we could recognize that this covers 4 times a year, covers 3 months. Okay, so I could just go ahead and take that $120, divide it by the 3 months that it covers, and that gives me $40 per month. Okay, next up we have employment income. So this is the income that we make for employment. And we have $85,000, but we also have 30% deductions. So I'm going to go ahead and take off those deductions first. So if I am removing 30%, that means I want to keep 70% of the 85,000. So I'm going to take this 85,000 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.70. So remember, this 0.70, that's 70%, okay? And so that's the amount of money that I get to keep. So when I multiply that 85,000 by 0.70, that gives me an annual amount or take home or gross pay, sorry, or net pay of 59,500, and that's per year. So to get the monthly amount, I would just have to divide that by 12. So I have 59,500 divided by 12, and then my monthly net income would be $4,958.33 per month. Okay. Let's take a look at this next one. We have an hourly wage of 15. We work 37.5 hours per week, and we have 20% deductions. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out how much of our gross income we get per month. So if I have $15 times the number of hours I work, 37.5, that gives me a weekly amount of $562.50. Now to get my monthly amount, I would multiply that by 4, and that gives me $2,250 per month. Okay, but that doesn't take into consideration the 20% deductions. So now I need to go ahead and make those 20% deductions. So to lose 20%, I'm going to keep 80%. So I am running out of room here, but I have 2,250 times 0.8, and that allows me to keep that 80%. So I get $1,800 per month. Okay. Okay, so we are taking a look at, budgets. We will be looking at monthly budgets, but also annual budgets. And so there's a lot of things that we do pay annually, and then sometimes we can put aside money every month or record it in our monthly budget instead of just putting them, or the other option is putting it in the month that we pay them. So here's a couple examples that I have for you. So the first one is that, so teachers, we pay a due of $150 every January. So this is just a professional dues. So it goes to the Ontario College of Teachers. There's also an Ontario College of Nurses. There's also trades dues that get paid every year. So that amount, you can record it in the budget for January, or you can divide it by 12 and record it for every month. So it kind of depends on how you work your budget. For me, I just pay that amount every January. So I know that in January, I'm going to have that extra payment. So I would include it in my January budget. Another thing to consider is GST checks, and they're paid quarterly. So that's every 3 months, okay, or 4 times a year. And that happens in March, June, September, and December. So you can record it in those months particularly. That's mostly what people would do. Or you can kind of take a look and spread it out over the year. But most of the time we would record it in those monthly budgets. And then we have unexpected amounts that can be budgeted with emergency savings. So they might be dealt with on an as needed basis. So you might need to add those just to the month that those emergencies happen. The next chart that's in your duotang is taking a look at expenses and income amounts. So either money coming in or money going out. And then within those expenses, deciding, okay, are they non-discretionary or are they discretionary, right? Are they something that we need to do or just like it would be nice to do? And then within those non-discretionary, is it fixed or variable? And within the discretionary, is it fixed or variable? So the solutions for this chart were actually in the Desmos lesson. So make sure that you can always go back to the lesson, you can log back into the lesson, and then fill out the chart in your duotang. So I've already been using that word budget in our lessons. So now I think it's time that we provide a good definition of what a budget is. Okay. So the first thing we're going to write is, oops, I'm still on highlighter. Excuse me. So a budget is an itemized. So itemized means writing down every single item. Forecast. So this is me planning for the future. So I'm looking ahead of individuals' income and expenses for a specific period of time. So for a budget, you could put together monthly budgets and then you can put together annual budgets, so for the whole year. So again, just to reiterate, a budget is itemized. So we take a look at all the pieces that we are either the things we are spending on or the money coming in. It's a forecast, so it might not be exact because we always have expenses that we aren't sure of, or maybe we get some money that we didn't know was coming, and we have it divided into income and expenses, and it is for a specific period of time. So when we're putting together a budget, we take a look at either a monthly budget or an annual budget, or maybe you would look at a quarterly budget, depending on what you were doing. But most of the time we're doing for individual budgets, we're looking at monthly and annually. Okay, so some of the rules or methods when coming up with budgets, we need to list a couple things. So the first thing we need to list are our sources of income. Okay, the money that's coming in, and then we need to list our expenses. And these are our non-discretionary and discretionary. We definitely need to have dates on there. Okay, we need to calculate our total income. And then we need to calculate our total expenses. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and take our income and subtract our expenses. And based on when we subtract the money coming in, the money going out from the money coming in, we're either going to have a surplus of money, so we'll have extra money in our budget, or we're going to have a shortage. And that means that there's more money going out than there's money going in. And so in this case, well, in both cases, we would have to adjust our budget. So we would put any extra into savings, okay? And then if we have a shortage, we would adjust our discretionary spending. So if I had budgeted to go out for dinner a couple times that month, but my budget ended up with a shortage at the end when I subtracted my expenses from my income, I would go back and adjust that maybe I wouldn't go out for dinner twice a month. I would only go out for dinner once a month. So let's make a list of the income examples, that the things that we would put in under income, our income list. So our employment income, and that's our income from our job. So that's the first one. The next one is you might be getting employment insurance. And people receive employment insurance if they're unable to work or they've lost their job. So sometimes that is a source of income. WSIB payments. Whoops, SIB payments. So if somebody was injured at work and the injury was claimed through their work, they would get payments from the Workers' Safety Board, and they would get payments from them. There are some other types of government assistance. Government assistance. So some people get some other government assistance. Retirement income. None of us are at that age yet, but certainly when people get older, that is money that comes in. Child tax benefit. So I have 2 children and I receive a child tax benefit from the government. Sometimes we have other income. I'll just write down other. Maybe you get tips at your job. Maybe you tutor on the side. Maybe you mow lawns, that kind of thing. I'll write investment income as another example. So if I invest in, stocks or a company and it does really well, I would get some income from that. Maybe you get money as a gift. Maybe you receive GST checks. Okay, so here's a good list of income examples that you would put on a budget. So some expenses. The first big one that people pay for is accommodations. The next one is transportation. So again, accommodations, we would budget for our rent or our mortgage. Transportation, if you use a car, you'd have car payments, insurance, gas, right? If you use public transportation, you'd have your monthly pass. Maybe you use some Uber or taxi or Lyft in there as well, and you could budget for that. We would budget for utilities if they weren't included in our rent. We would budget for TV, internet, and phone. We would have an expense for groceries, clothing, childcare, education. So especially for anybody going off to post-secondary, not only do you have tuition, you might have books, you might have different programs that you have to get for your computer, that kind of thing. Maybe after you leave school, you might have some debt that you have to pay monthly. If you own a house, you might have property tax. Also an expense is when we put aside things into or money into our savings, and then we have those leisure expenses or entertainment as well. Okay, so there's some examples for you. So now we're going to take a look at another case study. So again, we're going to do case study A together, and then you will choose to do case study B, C, or D.